we have to be a student of life, become daily learners. Learners is something that we have to adapt the name of. Simply because we adapt the name of learners, we're constantly learning for ourselves. And see, I didn't recognize the power of reading until I start to read more. And see, that's what this video is all about, is why should you read more? Just because we understand that there's a lot of information around us, that's when we get in trouble, because we don't know where to begin. The first one I want to hit on is knowledge expansion. See, what's so scary is the information that's in the book. Even though it's in a book, it can be learned. I didn't understand. I didn't even recognize that. I remember the first book that I ever read was Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's not a real estate book. It's really a book to help you shift your mindset, just the way you think and think about yourself in current situations, right? As I'm reading this book, it's giving me a different perspective of a rich dad and a poor dad, really a rich mindset, or a open mindset rather than a closed one. And what it taught me is that everybody has a phase when you have to grow from what you have been doing. See, once I understood that I had to become a learner, me learning became overwhelming, because the information I was reading in Rich Dad Poor Dad, it felt relatable. Even though it was relatable, how can I apply the information I just learned? That's when I understood, yes, Rich Dad and Poor Dad is the name of the title, is the name of the book. Yet the description and the explanation that's inside the book, I wouldn't find that out if I never opened the book and read it. I didn't recognize that the knowledge expansion was me re-identifying that my mind was closed. The way I thought was too little, because I didn't know how to think big. I wasn't aware that you can think big. All you have to do is just change what you think about yourself. Even though I thought so neutral of myself, so normal, I had to learn that it takes time to change your perspective of who you are. It took me time, because I didn't know what I was doing. When I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it was so impactful, so powerful that, yes, one person's mind was open, the next one was closed. How can the closed-minded person become open-minded? And it taught me that you have to want it for yourself. You have to want to change and grow and evolve and learn how to. See, when I learned how to become a daily learner, it taught me the importance of reading. And the information was in the book, but I had to pick the book up and start on page 1. Even though I started on page 1, I went to page 1 to page 2, page 2 to page 3, page 3 to page 4. I'm learning information that I wasn't familiar with. I wasn't familiar with the open mind and the closed mind. I didn't recognize that the knowledge that was in the book was expanded the way I thought about myself. And it really taught me that the importance of life is learning how to control yourself. And even though I didn't recognize that my mind was closed because it never was taught to me, I was learning how to become open-minded. Did it happen overnight? Absolutely not. It happened when it was supposed to happen, because I was constantly learning on how to work with it rather than against it. What is it? Rather than work against my mind, how can I work with it? That's the difference between being open-minded and closed-minded. You're working with your thoughts rather than against it, because when I was working against my thoughts, everything was so difficult. Everything was so overwhelming and frustrating, because I couldn't figure nothing out. Yet it taught me when I worked with my thoughts, everything became more understanding and easy to understand, because I learned how to control myself. I changed what I thought, and as I thought became big, because there's a saying that goes, when you dream big, you think big. Yet if you think small, you remain the same. If your mind is closed, how can you grow into somebody better? If your mind is closed from information that's right in front of you, because we are not comfortable reading a book, how can we change and evolve to the best version of ourselves? I learned that the information is in the book is just learning from other people's experiences. Even though we're learning from other people's experiences, how can we put that in our everyday life? How can we learn how to be learners of the knowledge? See, when we expand our knowledge, we understand that everybody has a story, and we have to choose what path we want to focus on. And it taught me that even though Rich Dad and Poor Dad was two different people, two different perspectives, two different mindsets, we can change when we decide to do it for ourselves. And that's why it became so important, because once we learn how to read, once we are open to learning, that's where growth happens. Because it doesn't happen if we're not willing to read page 1. It doesn't happen if we're not willing to open a book and even read it, because as you're opening up the book and reading it, there's information in there that's going to expand what we think about ourselves.